Hello, I'm Dwayne Dickens, and I'm meeting with Frederick Artis, and we're going to have a conversation about our work with the African American Male Student Success Team. Frederick, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, well, I have a first question for you, which is when you think about this last year of working with the African American Male Student Success Team, what would you consider to be some of your best memories of working with the students?
Well, some of my best memories working with the students is meeting their families, trying to understand the cultures in which they reside in, because it's by understanding that culture and meeting their parents or their students or their grandparents, it allows me to get to know them better so we can have a more successful partnership in trying to, develop their goal of graduating from Tulsa Community College.
Okay. And still looking back over this year and working with the students, what would you consider to be some of your most significant challenges in working with the students?
Well, unfortunately, it's the same thing.
Okay.
Working with the parents, trying to convince them that we need to set up a culture in which this student can succeed. Now, oftentimes, they don't understand it. It takes a buy-in. It takes a covenant, if you will, on behalf of the student, the parent, along with the institution. And sometimes they don't understand what that takes. They may not understand that if this student is required to do certain activities at Thanksgiving, is required to do certain activities at Christmas, that hinders him or her or hinders him from graduating or studying properly to succeed. So oftentimes the same things that I've enjoyed the most have been just as challenging as well.
Okay. And sort of delving into some of your past as far as your educational experiences, what would you consider to be some of the experiences you had that prepared you to be a mentor for African American males at TCC?
Well, as an African American male growing up, I came out of a household with just one parent, my mother. And growing up in that household, I've had to, I was introduced to many mentors. I had mentors at church, I have mentors on the football field, I had mentors in the classroom. Wherever there was another male figurehead in my life, they eventually ended up becoming my mentor. I didn't realize that in coming up, but in looking back, those individuals helped shape my lives, and so my life. And so I've had to think about those experiences and along with some principles that I learned from church, such as from to whom much is given, much is expected. Those principles have sort of made me think that it's time for me to give back the way the mentors in my life, provided for me. And so those are some of the things I take away from my experience growing up.
Okay. And when you think about your experiences overall in college or in your education, is there any particular experience that stands out to you that really equipped you to be successful in college?
I would say that early on, when I had to rely on my mother, who was an educator as well, to mentor me, moving away from home and going to college as an athlete, that was really a turning point in my life, because I had to both excel in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And that really was a challenging endeavor, especially when you want to succeed in both endeavors. And so that was a little challenging at first for me. And in high school, it wasn't as challenging as much. But as I moved on to college, it was significantly more challenging, because for the first time I was traveling on the weekends, the first 11 weekends of the school year, I may add. And those are the most important weekends for any student, because you don't want to get behind. And so having to travel and study at the same time and be prepared in the classroom week after week, and learning how to deal with that, that really turned me around as far as my academic proudness was concerned, and gave me the confidence that I could do this. But at the same time, it really prepared me for life in general, because I really had to dig down like I never had before.
Okay, thank you. Could you describe what you consider to be a successful college student?
A successful college student, in my opinion, is one who has gone through the rigors. It doesn't necessarily mean they were successful at everything that they pursued, but most importantly, that they learned from that experience. And so those students that are able to learn from those good and bad experiences yet succeed, I think they prepare and make the best students that eventually graduate. If you're going through college, I don't know any student whose experience is. If you go through college with no challenges, no downfalls, no problems, I don't think it prepares you as well. I think the challenges, the challenges in the classroom, outside of the classroom, help you to develop to be a better, a better human being, a better student, and in my case, a better mentor. Because then, as you go on with your life, you're able to reach back and share this experience with mentees or others you may come across in your life, and tell them, and hopefully get them around this barrier that you experience, which I think is one of the which is a significant goal of African American success team, is to help these students go around these barriers in which we know are there. Barriers are everywhere. It just depends on what type of resources you have to overcome them. And so I think the intervention that we have is serving a great benefit for those students who are involved.
Okay. And so when you think about your definition that you just gave to us, and take your mentors who you're working with, how would you describe your mentees in relationship to the definition that you just gave for a successful student?
Well, each of my mentees are all different. They have their pros and they have their cons. But one of the things that they all possess is a thirst for an education, a thirst to be better. What they don't understand oftentimes is how to take that thirst and develop it. And that's where I come in. And so I feel that my mentees all possess a thirst, yet do not know or have an idea maybe how to direct that thirst in pursuing a degree, a certificate, or transfer to a four-year institution. And so in all of my students mentees have a common denominator of a thirst. They just don't know how to direct, their efforts in accomplishing their goals.
Okay. Now, when you consider your role as a mentor, what are some of the most significant obstacles you face in trying to help your students be successful?
Well, as I mentioned before, I've had to deal with their families. And in some cases, this has proven most difficult because while students are trying to attain a degree, I've had to deal with mentees who have all of a sudden left home for whatever reason. And instead of worrying about books, they're worrying about keeping the lights on. Instead of worrying about going to class, they're worrying about where they're getting their next meal from. And so the same challenges, the same pros that I mentioned earlier are the same challenges that I'm having to deal with. And so again, the family members, the culture in which they reside, in which they are developed, I find to be the most challenging. And that is the reason why I'm so adamant about, understanding what culture are they coming from, who are their influences, what significantly has impacted this particular young man, what's their background, what are their motivations, and so things like that really has got my interest. And so again, if you can develop a culture, I don't care what it is, whether it's football, basketball, academic, whatever, then you'll have a much better chance at affecting that particular student positive, regardless of their background. But if that culture is not right, if that culture is not acceptable, if it's not redeemable, if it's not effective, then you're just going to have a hard time with that particular student. So it's just not about the student. It's about the culture in which that student resides, or the culture in which that student has been a part of.
Okay. What resources would you find, or have you found, to be most beneficial to you as a mentor as you work with your students?
Well, I've found, again, I know I'm being repetitive here, but I find exposing my students or my mentees to different people, different cultures in which they have been familiarized with, I find that to be very helpful. A lot of them are not exposed to anything other than the particular neighborhood or Tulsa, Oklahoma, for example. And so I find that just getting them out, showing them if they happen to live in North Tulsa, bringing them over to South Tulsa, showing them around, going places with them, talking to them, just sitting down talking to them sometimes, showing them that we have your best interests at heart, and that this is just not about, although the goal here is to make sure they succeed academically, that it's much more involved than just succeeding academically. Because again, they must, they need other things to succeed academically. They need lights on in the house. They need food. They need all these things. But most importantly, they need good, sound people in their lives to help them perpetuate the best they can be. And so again, those resources that I find to be most helpful are just presenting them an atmosphere which is positive, one in which they don't have to fear or be afraid of or be resistant to. Having a child to go to a library which has wonderful resources, nice lights, adequate books, learning can take place there. But it's hard to learn in an atmosphere in which there are no lights, the roof leaks, it may smell in there. They may have some air issues with that particular facility. It's hard to learn effectively in an atmosphere like that, an atmosphere that's not safe. And so again, having them, showing them atmospheres in which they can excel, I have found to be the best resources and more importantly, the best influences to getting them to change to be the best they can be.
Okay, thank you. And when you're thinking about the success team that we have, what, if you could add something or change something about the team, what would you change in order for the team to help you be a more effective mentor?
That's a good question. Certainly if we had funding to the extent in which I could probably see more mentorship programs in person, certainly if I could be provided the funding to meet others who are involved in mentorship programs at different colleges and universities around the country, I think I could be a little bit better than what I am. There's a lot of good ideas out there. There are a lot of best practices. There are a lot of best of breeds ideas. But if you're not exposed to them, then you can't pass them on to your mentees. And so if it was something that could be done in which it could help me, I think it would be the same thing that I mentioned for the mentees: more exposure to best of breed ideas, more exposure to best practices and different type of programs in which I could play a more of a significant role in the mentee's life. So.
Okay. And when you think about the work that you've done over this last year with your mentees, what, if you could redo anything, what would you do differently?
I probably, again, would be a little bit more closer to my mentees. Oftentimes when you're dealing with these young men, you don't want to crowd them, but there was a period of time where I had met the family and had gone out to dinner with them, had pleasant visits, and assumed everything was going well. Everything was fine. And there was a period of time where I just said, I'll let him just go ahead and study. It seems like he has all the resources he needs. He has my number, email address, all that. Well, something happened in between dinner and next year that caused a significant change in his life. And so no one called me. Again, I'm dealing with the family. No one informed me of what had taken place. And in retrospect, had I just consistently, remained in contact with him, I probably could have avoided or prevented some of the things that took place from happening. But again, you don't want to seem like you're, I guess it's just like any parent with their child. They don't want to be overburden them. Don't want to be, there's a phrase now that's used in higher education, helicopter parents. You don't want to be this helicopter parent and just fly over your child or fly over your mentee all the time. You want them to sort of embrace some of the principles or concepts that you're trying to introduce to them and let them, have their space. And so in thinking that, I probably should have, in retrospect, called him a little more, reached out to him a little more, as well as to his family, because this was a family change that took place, and it was a very significant one. He hasn't stopped attending school yet. It's caused some changes that I think could have been addressed in a more beneficial way for the parents and the student. But nonetheless, these are challenges in life that happen every day, and they've gone through them. They're still persisting, I'm happy to say, but at the same time, we could have done things a little better.
Could you talk more about what are some of the obstacles that you have seen in your African American male students that they face daily in being successful in college?
Well, every student is different. Those barriers have been friends and associates. Those barriers have been transportation in some instances. Those barriers have been family members, to the extent some of them have their own families, and some of them have more than 2 kids. So you can imagine trying to balance school and family, especially if you have more than 2 kids. Trying to understand some of the barriers are just lack of knowledge, lack of wisdom. They vary among the different students that I mentor. And so these barriers are vast and wide, and sometimes they're unknown to me until I'm exposed to them. Once I'm exposed to them, sometimes it can be a little late, but if I'm exposed to it early, generally I can talk with them and maybe prevent or maybe help them successfully go around that barrier. Other instances, you just have to take it as it comes, and so I have found the barriers to be diverse according to the student. They're all different, which makes it much more interesting, by the way, but at the same time very challenging. So the barriers to success with regard to my mentees are just diverse.
Okay. And if you could make a list of resources that every student, African American male student, should be aware of at the college, what would be what are some of the resources you would tell them you need to know about these resources at the college in order for you to be successful?
Well, first of all, without being too biased, I would tell them you need to know about the African American Success Team in order to increase your chances of succeeding more. When I first heard the words "achieving a dream," the first thing I said to myself was, "Wow, those 3 words could be a national anthem for anyone's life, achieving a dream." And so I feel that TCC does a pretty good job at providing a lot of resources. The problem with that is there are so many resources that not one person knows about all these particular resources. And so other than getting to meet a particular mentor or identifying with a particular faculty member or teacher who they feel can really help propel them to the next level, the only additional resources I would suggest that they try to avail themselves to is and it's kind of hard for students to do this, is somewhat of a different culture. You know, so oftentimes these kids are coming from, some come directly from high school, some don't. But regardless, they all have peers or friends out there which they feel close to. And sometimes making that transition is not as smooth as you would think. Sometimes they want to continue to hang with the people that they probably shouldn't hang with, but at the same time they want to be successful at attaining their degree. You know, there's an old saying, you can't hoot with the owls at night and crow with the chickens in the morning. And so you just have to understand that at some point in time, the student is going to have to make a decision, and getting them to understand how important that is as soon as possible, I would think be one of the most credible resources that you can provide to a student.
Okay. Now, you answered earlier what you would change about the student success team, but putting on a different lens, be the student. What do you think your students would want changed in the success team in order to help them be more successful?
I think the students probably would want to see more African American males. I think there's 14 or 15 of us here at the college, and I think some of these students would like to see more African American males. A lot of them come from homes in which there is no male, and so the only male figurehead that's in their life may be a minister, or it may be you and I. And so looking through the lens of the students, I would like to see I would think that if I was a student at Southeast, West Campus, Metro Campus, or here at Metro, I would want to see more African American males. So hopefully I could maybe talk with them and ask more about what does it mean to be a successful student here at Tulsa Community College, and how can you help me as an African American male be more successful here at the college, and maybe we can begin to bridge that cultural divide, if you will, with regard to the student and his culture at Tulsa Community College. And so that's what I think would be most important if I was a student, is seeing more African American male faculty members, administrators here at Tulsa Community College.
Okay. And when you think of the activities that the team has had over this last year, what activities stand out to you as being most beneficial in equipping students for success?
Well, that's a tough question. The activities we had this past year were numerous. However, due to the fact that many of our students are working and trying to be responsible citizens, trying to be responsible students, many of them did not attend those activities. I would think that one of the most beneficial activities we had at the that we sponsored last year would probably have been the outing we had at the Tulsa University football game. That gave us a chance to bond a little bit closer. It wasn't a thing where we had to sit there and talk about their academic prowess or their academic status. It was just a chance to get out, enjoy a hometown game, have fun. Didn't cost them anything. It was a way in which some of them had, one of my mentees brought his sister. And so it was a way for us to come together. And actually from that particular session, we ended up going to dinner later on. And so I felt that particular event really allowed me to get to know my mentees a little bit more than I had not known previously.
And when you think of those same set of activities, are there any that you would consider not doing as much of?
Well, it's not that I wouldn't probably not do any particular activity, because I think they were all worthwhile. Mm-hmm. I think probably what was more challenging with regard to those activities was the timing of them. Mm-hmm. For example, we had an activity here at Metro Campus when the fair was in town. Well, when the fair comes to town, everyone seems to take their family members or go with their family members or friends to the fair. And because of that fair, a lot of the mentees, I think, went to that fair also. Consequently, it affected the number of mentees who attended our event that we had for them. It was a good event. I mean, the dialogue, the questioning sessions that took place, they were excellent. It was just that the timing of these events they weren't really the best time. And so I think if we had to do it again, looking at those events that are coming to town, understanding what's taking place with regard to the various events, and understanding what weekends are available for us along with the academic calendar, I think if we were to look at that a little bit closer this year, some of our activities would have more of an impact and probably be attended more as well.
Okay. When you think about the work that we do, and we're working toward institutionalizing our work, what would be some suggestions for how to make that institutionalizing happen?
Well, again, I go back to what I've been saying the whole time. We've got to change the culture. Take what we've done and magnify it through the rest of the culture. There are different, what I call resource groups. African American males, I think, are a resource group. Other denominations, other groups of students, I think would also serve as great resources groups. But at the same time, you must create positive, efficient cultures. And trying to do that is challenging. It's challenging because we're a commuter campus. It's challenging because a lot of our students are working. And so, therefore, in trying to create this culture, you may have more problems than you would normally have maybe on a four-year campus in which housing was available, and therefore the students would be more inclined to be together. For example, if you had all the students staying in a particular dorm, the studies probably would be a lot better. The culture would probably be a lot better. The activities could be planned a lot better. And because the atmosphere is a lot better, the success rate of the students would probably be good as well. And so again, changing the cultures. First thing you think about when you talk about anything successful, you think about the culture, regardless of what it is. It's almost as though you're expected to do well. You talk about certain private schools. Certain private schools have a culture. The expectations are clear. The expectations are to develop the intellect. The student understands that. The parent understands that. The principal understands that. And so again, it's about a culture, the culture of understanding that we're here to succeed by any means necessary. And I think if that same culture within those different resource groups in which we have here at Tulsa Community College, if we could somehow duplicate that, now that's a challenge in duplicating it and trying to find an implementation plan in which you can gather and rally commuter students who are both working and trying to go to school, then I think we would have a more successful collegiate experience here at Tulsa Community College. But again, it's difficult because students are doing a lot of things. They're involved with a lot of different missions within their church and other groups and so forth. And so I guess the only other thing they could do that we can do here at TCC is develop more maybe fraternities and sororities, which would again create a culture of higher expectations. And so I would think that TCC could benefit well if we could somehow duplicate those efforts.
Okay. And going further with ideas for suggestions, but what, based on what you've learned, if you could offer some advice to faculty and staff at TCC to help African American male students, what would you offer as advice to those groups?
I would say to those particular groups, try to reach out, try to expand your reach. If there's only 14 or 15 African American males here at the college, if I'm not mistaken, at this particular time. And so consequently, some of these teachers and faculty members, they don't come in contact with any of us. I work at the conference center. You work at Metro Campus. So because of their daily work and because of my daily work and because they don't cross paths, they sometimes may not have a sense of understanding of what a child is going through. They may not have a sense of understanding that this child is at home without lights. This child is at home trying to raise a kid, or maybe trying to help their parent out. There's so much that can be learned if you can understand the culture in which they reside in. Because if they're coming to school and they're going home to a culture of guns and violence and arguments and people not supporting their academic prowess, then it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult. But once you understand that and then try to work around that particular barrier, if you will, and then once you understand that the student really has a thirst but somehow cannot seem to get out of this particular culture, then I think the professors can begin to become more sensitive and aware of these students' needs, and then react in a way in which they can be more successful. And sometimes it takes thinking out of the box, if you will. Sometimes it takes a simple gesture that makes all the difference in the world to a particular student. And without even knowing, some of these faculty members can begin to become mentors themselves without even joining a formal outfit like we have become. And I think that right there would serve them and the institution exceedingly well, because again, we will have met our institutional mission, which is to develop the intellect.
Okay. Now, this is the last question I have, but was there a question that you came prepared thinking I'm sure this is going to be something we'll talk about that I did not ask and that you're prepared to discuss?
Well, no, not really. I thought you may have asked, usually you have these conversations and they always say, well, what are your favorite books that you would advise a kid to read? And from a personal perspective, I always say, the Bible. The Bible gives you certain principles that will help you, that will be metaphors for life. And so I know that they just haven't heard it from me. I know they probably heard it from their mother or their preacher or their pastor or whoever. But again, I'm in the same choir, and I would tell them that would be the best book that you could reference in order to be successful in life, because a lot of this is based on faith. And if you don't have faith, if you don't have faith of a mustard seed, if you don't have faith where you can't understand or believe that you're going to be successful, you're going to be walking across the stage at TCC in 2 to 3 years. If you don't have the faith that we've got teachers here who are willing to help you, if you don't have the faith that miracles do happen, people do care, that TCC has a outstanding, compelling faculty here to help and assist you. If you don't have that faith, then it's going to be awfully difficult for you to succeed. And along with that thirst, you got to have faith. Man, with thirst without faith, I don't know if there's such a thing. But you've got to have that faith. And the Lord just didn't put good teachers in Maryland, where I'm from. He didn't put good teachers at USC, or didn't put all the good teachers at Harvard. There are excellent teachers right here at Tulsa Community Colleges, at Tulsa Community College and colleges across Oklahoma. US has an excellent system, educational system, I feel. And I believe it's imperative that students understand that there are good teachers everywhere. You just need to decide where you want to join, where you want to study, go there, and someone hopefully will be there to assist you. And as long as you have that faith that someone is going to be there to assist you, 9 times out of 10 you will find someone to help you excel, or find someone to help you decide what it is you want to do in life. And so that was one of the questions I thought you were going to ask, because everyone's always looking for this book, this panacea of thoughts and ideas that can make you rise up like no one has ever done. And so there are many good books out there, but I think like a tree, you need to have a good foundation. You need to have a good root. And I think if you're going to have a good root or a good foundation, you need to start out with some sort of principles that you can have in your mind and apply them when times get tough. Because when times get tough, you're going to need to go back, as everyone will always refer to your ABCs. You're going to have to back up and start over again. And you need to have some sort of sense of foundation, purpose, to lean on during tough times. And so that's always, that's the place to start. After that, there's a lot of branches of good books out there that you could access, and I would encourage them to start off first with a good foundation, and that is, I feel, the Bible.
Okay. Thank you, sir. That was a great question.
Okay.
Great answer. Thank you.
Appreciate you having me.
Okay. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.